Today is a brand new day in Malta, and we are starting our adventure by exploring a colorful open air craft market before heading to an incredible art museum filled with beautiful and fascinating pieces. But the best part is yet to come because today we are also going to uncover one of Malta's biggest secrets. So come along with us as we explore more of this beautiful island, discover its hidden gems, and dive into some of Malta's most fascinating secrets, mysteries, and conspiracy theories.
We are gonna go with one like that.
As we promised, today we are going from Sliema to Valletta using Malta's traditional water taxi. We bought a one-way ticket for just 8 euros for the two of us, and keep in mind that they require cash. The trip itself was really relaxing, and thankfully, our boat driver pointed out Manuel Island along the way. The island is currently undergoing restoration, but it's home to the historic Fort Manuel, built in the 18th century by the Order of St. John to protect the harbor. The fort has a fascinating history and is definitely worth seeing.
We've been with a small boat.
That one, show them.
Okay, you can see it. They're leaving to Sliema now. It was a nice experience. It was like in Bali.
No, it's much better than Bali. In Bali, I had 5 heart attacks per minute. Here it's really okay. Just that you have to be careful with whom you are in the boat, because if make any sudden move, then it's a problem. But otherwise, no. Actually, a very nice experience.
Yeah. I really like it. And now we are going up again because we are back in Valletta. See, Valletta ferry service.
Yeah, probably
Even though it was still early in the morning, Valletta was already full of tourists. The streets were slowly getting busier and people arrived to explore Malta's beautiful capital. We made our way through the lively streets surrounded by historic buildings, cafes, and plenty of tourists heading towards the city's famous attractions. As we made our way towards MUΖA, Malta's National Museum of Art, but on the way, we came across a really cute open air craft market that immediately caught our attention, and the best part, everything was handmade. The market was located in Castle Square, right in the heart of Valletta. I tried to find some information about it afterwards, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any official details confirming whether the market takes place every Saturday or if it's only held on certain dates. So, if you happen to visit Valletta and see it there, definitely take some time to have a look around. After exploring the market, I decided to just walk around for a little while and enjoy the atmosphere of Valletta. Honestly, one of my favorite things about Malta is the architecture. The warm golden limestone buildings, the entire city is such a unique character, and every street seems to have something beautiful waiting around the corner. And of course, you can't forget about the views. Everywhere you look, Malta somehow manages to surprise you with another beautiful panorama. Whether it's the old buildings, the sea, or the incredible views across the harbor, there's always something worth stopping for and taking a moment to appreciate.
Okay.
exploring the streets of Valletta, we finally arrive at MUΖA, Malta's National Museum of Art. The museum has an amazing collection of artworks spanning different periods, with paintings and sculptures that showcase Malta's rich artistic and cultural history. One of the paintings that really caught my attention was the dramatic scene depicting the battle between Cain and Abel. Based on the biblical story of the two brothers, the artwork shows the intense moment of conflict between them, representing one of the most famous stories of jealousy and betrayal in the Bible. The level of detail in the scene is incredible, from the expressions of the figures to the movement and emotion captured in the painting. And honestly, that's something you'll notice throughout the museum. Many of the artworks have incredibly detailed scenes with so many small elements and stories hidden within them. You can spend quite a while just looking at one painting and discovering new details. Another fascinating painting is the Martyrdom of Saint Catherine of Alexandria, created by the famous Italian Baroque painter Mattia Preti, who lived from 1613 to 1699. The painting itself is incredibly detailed and dramatic, but what makes it even more interesting is the possibility that there could be another painting hidden underneath it, similar to the famous theory surrounding Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, where scientific scans revealed an earlier portrait beneath the final painting. Artworks like this remind us that there can be much more hidden beneath the surface than we might expect. After exploring the first part of Musa, it's time to continue our journey through Malta's incredible art history. But before we look at the artworks themselves, let's talk a little bit about the museum. Musa stands for the Maltese words for National Museum of Art, but the name also connects to the word muse and the idea of inspiration. In Maltese, Musa can also mean inspiration, which I think is a really fitting name for a museum dedicated to art. MUΖA opened to the public in 2018 and replaced the former National Museum of Fine Arts, which was previously located at the Admiralty House. The museum is now housed inside the historic Arch d'Italie, one of Valletta's famous buildings, originally constructed for the Italian Knights of the Order of St. John. Honestly, I think the building itself makes the experience even more special. You're not just walking through a modern gallery, you're exploring a historic building while discovering centuries of art inside. The museum collections is absolutely huge in terms of the variety of things you can find. Of course, there are paintings which probably make up the biggest part of the experience, but there are also sculptures, drawings, engravings, furniture, jewelry, ceramics, silverware, photographs, and decorative objects. The collection even extends into photography, video art, and contemporary installations. The collection itself has developed over more than a century through acquisitions, donations, bequests, and transfers from both government and private collections. Today, it tells the story of Malta not only through Maltese artists, but also through many international artists who came to the islands or whose work reached Malta through the country's connections with Europe and Mediterranean. And this is where the museum becomes really interesting because Malta has always been at a crossroads between different cultures. Because of its location in the Mediterranean, the island was influenced by Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. You can actually see these different influences reflected in the art. The historical collections take you through Malta's artistic journey, from early periods and Renaissance influences to the arrival of the Order of St. John in 1530. The Knights brought with them an enormous cultural and artistic influence, and this is when Malta entered a particularly important period of Baroque art. One of the biggest names you'll encounter is Mattia Preti. He was an Italian Baroque painter who arrived in Malta in the 1650s and spent around 4 decades working on the islands. His influence on Maltese art was enormous, and he even established his own workshop in Valletta. But Preti is definitely not the only important artist here. You can also discover works connected to artists such as Filippo Paldini, Guido Reni, Valentin de Bolgone, Giuseppe de Ribera, Malchioro Caffa, Antonio Favrai, and Giuseppe Grecci. Many of these artists were connected to the dramatic Baroque style, which is probably one of the most impressive things to see throughout the museum. The paintings are filled with movement, emotion, intense expressions, dramatic lighting, and incredibly detailed scenes. And this is something I personally loved about MUΖA. You can stand in front of a painting and keep looking at it because there are so many details happening at once. The longer you look, the more you notice. MUΖA is basically a journey through centuries of creativity, from the island's European and Mediterranean influences all the way to the modern Maltese art scene. And with that, our journey through the museum is almost over. But before we leave, there was still one more part of Valletta that we wanted to explore. And this time, we were heading toward one of Malta's most mysterious and fascinating secrets. Before we continue our journey through Malta, let's take a moment to understand the incredible history behind the city of Valletta. Valletta was founded in 1566 by the Order of St. John, following one of the most important events in Maltese history, the Great Siege of 1565. The Knights of St. John, together with the Maltese people, successfully defended the island against the Ottoman Empire. After their victory, Grand Master Jean Parisot de Valette ordered the construction of a new fortified city on the Scribers Peninsula, and that's how Valletta was born. The city was designed as a planned Renaissance city with straight streets, impressive fortifications, and buildings designed to protect the island while also showing the wealth and power of the order. And despite being one of Europe's smallest capitals, Valletta is packed with history almost everywhere you look. But the Knights of St. John were more than just warriors. They were also deeply connected to religion, medicine, art, and architecture. Their influence can still be seen in the churches, palaces, hospitals, and fortifications across Malta. One of the most fascinating things about Valletta is how many secrets seem to be hidden beneath its beautiful streets. The city has underground tunnels, shelters, and passageways, many of which were used throughout Malta's history. During the Second World War, the underground spaces became extremely important as people sought protection from bombing. And there are the stories surrounding the knights themselves. Some people believe that secret tunnels connected important buildings around the city, allowing the knights to move around without being seen. While some underground passages definitely existed, many of the more mysterious stories have become part of Valletta's legends. There are also countless stories about hidden treasures, secret societies, and mysterious symbols connected to the Order of St. John. Some are based on historical facts, while others are much more difficult to prove. And maybe that's what makes Valletta so fascinating. Beneath the golden limestone buildings and beautiful streets is a city shaped by war, religion, politics, and centuries of secrets. So, while we walk through Valletta today, remember that there is always more to this city than what you can see on the surface. Because sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that remain hidden. And finally, we arrive at one of the places I was personally most excited to visit in Valletta, the National Museum of Archaeology. If you're interested in ancient history, archaeology, or even a good mystery, this is definitely a place you should add to your Malta itinerary. The museum takes you on a journey through thousands of years of Maltese history with artifacts dating from the Neolithic period around 5900 before Christ all the way to the early Phoenician period. The museum itself is located inside the Auberge de Provence, a beautiful historic building dating back to 1571. It was originally built for the Lang of Provence of the Order of St. John, so even before you start looking at the archaeological artifacts, you are already surrounded by centuries of history. One of the most famous objects in the museum is the Sleeping Lady. This tiny prehistoric figurine was discovered in the Halsaflieni Hypogeum, an extraordinary underground burial and ritual complex located in Paola. The Hypogeum was used between around 4000 and 1500 before Christ and is carved directly into the limestone beneath the ground. The sleeping lady is a small clay figurine showing a woman reclining on her side, and what makes it so interesting is that she appears to be lying on some kind of bed or couch. We obviously can't know exactly what this figurine represented to the people who created it thousands of years ago. Was it connected to death and burial? Was it a religious figurine? Was it a representation of sleep? Or perhaps something completely different? That's one of the fascinating things about archaeology. We can study the objects, their locations, and their context, but sometimes the people who created them left no written explanation behind. When you look at these artifacts together, you start to realize that prehistoric Malta wasn't simply a place of temples and mysterious statues. There were real communities living here, creating tools, preparing food, making pottery, practicing rituals, and burying their dead. When you think about it, this is absolutely incredible. Thousands of years ago, these people were building enormous megalithic temples without modern machinery or technology. They were creating structures from massive limestone blocks, developing their own artistic traditions, and producing sculptures and figurines that still survive today. But now, let's get to the part that has inspired some of the strangest stories and conspiracy theories surrounding Malta's ancient history: the skulls. On the upper floor of the museum, you can find human skulls excavated from the Halsaflieni Hypogeum, and these skulls have become famous around the world because of claims that some of them appear unusually elongated. This is where the story becomes controversial. During excavation in the early 20th century, archaeologist Sir Themistocles Zammit described some of the skulls as being of the long-headed type. Over time, this description was taken much further by people interested in alternative history. Some began suggesting that the skulls have been deliberately elongated through a practice known as artificial cranial modification, but others went much further. They began claiming that these unusual skulls might have actually belonged to extraterrestrial beings. And yes, you heard that correctly. There are conspiracy theories suggesting that the people buried in the Hippogeo were not ordinary humans at all, but perhaps aliens who visited ancient Malta thousands of years ago. Some versions of the theory even claim that the Maltese authorities or archaeologists have deliberately hidden evidence about these skulls. But here's where we need to separate fact from fiction. There is currently no scientific evidence proving that these skulls belonged to extraterrestrial beings. The alien theory is a conspiracy theory, not an accepted archaeological explanation. In fact, Heritage Malta has specifically addressed the mystery surrounding the skulls through research projects that combine archaeology, osteology, medicine, and scientific analysis. Researchers have been interested in understanding who these people were, their health, their lifestyle, their diet, and their ancestry. So, while the idea of ancient aliens might make for a fascinating story, the real scientific mystery is arguably even more interesting. Who were these people? Why were they buried inside this incredible underground complex? What did they believe about death and the afterlife? And why did they create such extraordinary monuments? Imagine standing inside an underground chamber created thousands of years ago, surrounded by stone walls and hearing your voice echo through the space. It makes you wonder whether these acoustic qualities were discovered by accident or whether they were intentionally incorporated into the design. And this is exactly why I think the National Museum of Archaeology is so interesting. It doesn't just show you old objects behind glass, it gives you clues about an entire civilization that disappeared thousands of years ago. So, from prehistory temples and mysterious figurines to ancient skulls, Bronze Age weapons, and Phoenician inscriptions, this museum covers an incredible amount of history. But for me, the most fascinating part is still the mystery surrounding the Hippogeo. Because whether you believe the alien theory or not, the truth is that we still don't know everything about the people who created Malta's prehistoric temples. We don't know exactly what all their symbols meant, we don't know the full purpose of every ritual, and we certainly don't know everything about the people whose remains were discovered in the Hippogeo. But maybe that's what makes archaeology so exciting. So, are these schools evidence of extraterrestrial visitors? No scientific evidence supports that claim, but do they tell us something fascinating about the people who lived in Malta thousands of years ago? Absolutely. And this, guys, was our day in Valletta, Malta. After exploring the city, discovering incredible art, and diving into Malta's fascinating history and mysteries, we ended the day by watching the beautiful sunset near Fort St. Elmo. It was the perfect way to slow down, relax, and enjoy incredible views before saying goodbye to Valletta.